Hi, it's Anna Breeze here, and I wanted to talk a little bit about conscious relationship. You know, this is a kind of been coming around a lot lately. What is a conscious or empowered relationship? What does that mean? So, over the last few years, I've been exploring this concept, and I guess I've just been realizing a lot of different things, and what I'm seeing is that the paradigms of relationships and what they really are all about is changing significantly. And I think that a lot of relationships have been going through major changes because there is a sort of general lack of understanding about, the purpose of relationship. So in the past, what happened was you had this mutual attraction with someone, and you liked them and you got on with them, and you just went with the flow, and then it just kind of advanced, and then you got married or didn't get married, but you stayed with this person, and then you would have like a sort of honeymoon period for a period of about 1 or 2 years, and then all the kind of shadow stuff would come up, and then you start to kind of find out the aspects about who this person really is, and you see their faults and they see your faults, and then you realize that maybe you're not really on the same wavelength, or maybe that you see life completely differently, and so this comes up through arguments, through just silly little trigger points, because it's the way you kind of learn your differences. So you start to see how different the two of you really are, and you start to realize that you don't agree with everything that the other person believes in or thinks or expresses, and this can lead to potential arguments and upsets and fights, because one person's trying to be understood by the other and they don't really get them, or they completely disagree with their point of view. So it's a kind of there's a lot of arguments about the differences in points of view and debates, and it just goes on like that, and then it can cause a lot of unnecessary pain and suffering, and then the feelings of not being loved and lack of self-worth come up to the forefront, and then not being heard. So I think that really a lot of people just don't know how to be in relationship. We've not really been brought up with the tools to be able to navigate ourselves in and create healthy, balanced relationships. And it's nobody's fault, because it's like we just haven't understood the purpose of relationship in the first place, and also having the tools to be able to navigate or communicate when the problems start arising. This is how I see it anyway. So one of the things is to understand, the first things is to understand the purpose of relationship. What is the purpose of relationship in the first place? I ask you. Well, to me, what I came to the conclusion for myself, and I'm just sharing from my own experience today with you. There's no right or wrong. You don't have to agree with me. I'm just sharing what I've learned in my journey. And that is that the purpose of relationship is growth. It's just growth. It's about you growing and learning more about yourself. And it's like this other person is there to act as a sounding board, as a mirror, to reflect back to you certain aspects about yourself that will show up in your relationship with this person, and will show you things about yourself that you didn't even know were there. So, but it's an interesting thing, relationships, because what might show up within that intimate relationship with that one person might not happen with your relationship with, your friend, down the road, because it's almost like there's just an interchange of energies, and so there's a specific theatrical play that goes on between you and your most intimate person that you love, the one that your favorite person, so naturally the trigger points come up within the context of that particular relationship, and that's why it can hurt, because it's like they're the person you love so much, and you just want to be fully accepted and loved, and you want to live happily ever after, and then when the discourse comes up, or the discord I should say, it's like, oh no, this just doesn't feel good, this feels horrible, I just want this harmony all the time. So that brings me to another aspect, which is learning that it's okay. It's okay to not agree. It's okay to have a period, because relationships are kind of like, they have all these different cycles. So there can be this period of, or just one afternoon where you're just not, harmonizing, and there's some sort of disagreement going on. And it's to understand that this is completely normal and that it's okay. It's okay to have this adversity come up in the relationship, and that just means that you're going through a growth cycle. So what's helped me is to understand that there is this almost 3-part thing going on, which is acceleration, which is when you're both kind of just living normally and doing things and enjoying life, and you're kind of moving forward, and you're exploring and learning and going on adventures together, and you might be in your job and they're in their job, and then you share about all of that stuff. So there's this period of acceleration, right? But then what happens is you hit a point where something comes up, some sort of trigger point that doesn't feel so good, and it might cause an argument or a disagreement, a misunderstanding, misinterpretation is another common one. But you might discuss it, and then you get through it, and you somehow manage to get through this thing. So that's your period of growth. That's where you've both learned something new. That's where you've both learned something new about each other. And I think that what would be really helpful, and what's helped me, is to understand that that's completely normal, and not to judge it, and not to be afraid of those parts of the relationship as well. So it's to kind of embrace them and say, oh goody, we're going through this adverse period right now. It means that we're really learning about each other. We're really learning about ourselves, and how we see the world, and we're in a period of growth. And then the third part is integration. So this is where you've learned the lessons that came through the adversity, and then you're just sort of integrating. And that can just be a period of, right, it's like this period of revelation, and you go, oh okay, I didn't know that. And this is where you're kind of like trying to understand how the dynamics work between the two of you, and this is where you might learn to appreciate things from their perspective. So it's a kind of integration, it's like you're learning about that they don't see things the way you do, and so you have to learn their sensitivities and the way they work. So a relationship is learning about yourself, but also learning about this other being that you deeply care about, and how their inner processes work as well. So it's really about, we have to learn to develop unconditional love in our relationships as well, so that we're creating the space to allow this other being to express what they need to express, and also to learn the lessons that they need to learn, and integrate them with you. So, and understanding things from their perspective. So it's based a lot on unconditional love for yourself as well as them, and then respecting that. So you've got to have this self-respect, and you've got to have respect for the other person as well. So there's got to be this mutual respect between the two of you. Another aspect is just that not being in relationship because you want that other person to fulfill you. So not going into a relationship where you already are not really happy in your life. So it's about understanding that no other person can fulfill your happiness and your joy. So don't expect that other person to make you happy. You have to find that and cultivate that within yourself first. So it's not to be needy. Don't go into a relationship being needy. Go into a relationship being fulfilled, being or on a process of fulfillment and realizing the truth within. So conscious relationship is usually an agreement between two partners where they both understand that it's not about the other person fulfilling them, because they understand that their own fulfillment needs to come from within themselves and their own connection to higher self or source. Because if you depend on this other person to fulfill you and make you happy, you are likely to become majorly disappointed at some point and majorly hurt. So you can avoid that if you can, by understanding that your own happiness is essentially your responsibility and not the other person's. So another point is respecting each other's life purpose. So understanding that, first of all, that the relationship is always going to be evolving. It's not going to be what it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago. Understand that you're both individuals and you've both got an individual life path and purpose for being here, and that you're both growing as individuals. Also, because of the relationship and the interaction with this being, your growth is accelerated. So when you're in relationship, your growth is generally accelerated than if you're not in relationship with someone else, because you've always got that mirror to reflect back to you the things that you kind of need to know about yourself. So respecting each other's life path and knowing that you're constantly in a state of evolution. So you have to kind of let go of judgments and not be judging the relationship based on how it was 2 years ago. Oh, we had it really good back then, because there is always that honeymoon period at the beginning. But you can keep the honeymoon alive. It is possible to keep the honeymoon alive if you can both keep it fresh. So it's about keeping it fresh by letting go all the time of expectations, and letting go of judgments especially. So it's really about kind of honoring that each other is on an evolutionary path and respecting that. And prioritizing your own connection to source, your own connection to your own inner worth, and not taking your cue from this other person for your own self-worth or self-value. So that's how we kind of give our power away in relationships, is by looking for, validation from the other person, looking for that sense of acceptance from the other person. So we don't want to do that in relationship. We want to actually be always evolving and connecting with our own self-value and our own self-love. Because I think as well, sometimes in relationship, because we're seeing this other being in front of us all the time, there is the focus all the time on them. And we have to sometimes just, take a look at ourselves and say, okay, what are my needs here? What are my needs today? What do I need to do for myself? Instead of going out for lunch with my partner, maybe I just need to go and take myself off to a spa somewhere, and be good to myself. Because what I've seen, and a lot of the women will relate to this, a lot of the time when women come out of relationships, you start to see them, going and getting a makeover and getting their hair cut and, starting to kind of be with their girlfriends and, go on a diet and get a new wardrobe. And it's like they're kind of finally giving to themselves. So the key is that whilst you're in a relationship is to still maintain that sense of giving to yourself at the same time. because, so this is where nurturing your own relationship with source, or just making sure that you're in a good place yourself, so that then you can share with your partner. So it's always about keeping yourself in balance first. So another one aspect is just living in the present, living in the present and not going back, not referring to the past, because it's so difficult to kind of remember what happened 2 years ago or 6 months ago. So it's better to address any potential issues that come up, to address them in the moment. Even if it is something that you've been repeatedly doing, and they say, you've been doing this over and over, it's still always good to just say, okay, well, I'm listening to what you're saying, and I will make an effort to change it. Or could you maybe just let me know when I'm doing that, so that I can be aware of it in the moment? So it's better to point things out as they're occurring, so that we don't harbour resentment. So to try and keep the relationship in the present as much as possible. Another aspect is just really wanting the best for each other, wanting that person to be the best version of themselves. So it's not about, don't limit the other person and what they're capable of based on how things have been so far, because we don't want to limit each other's potential. So we want to keep that sense of expandedness and unlimited potential for the other, because otherwise you'll just box them in, and then they'll feel like they're in this box and they can't get out. And I actually did another video on that, which was how to not box your partner in, if you want to look that up. So it's about understanding, again, this comes back to understanding that they're on an evolutionary path. They've got a soul's purpose and journey. So you want them to fulfill that the best they can. And this comes down to also understanding that in order for the other person or being to fulfill their purpose, it might actually even mean that they need to be in a different country, or they need to travel or go away for 6 months at a time to explore some aspect that they feel is really calling them. So it's kind of understanding each other's calling and purpose as well. And when we can do that, we can support the other in that growth and expansion. So we have to sometimes just, let them go to go and explore. And again, this is about not being needy ourselves. So understanding the bigger picture, that we're both on an individual soul's journey, soul's path, and that might mean that they have to go at some point to explore this potential path that they're on. There's so much actually to speak about in conscious relationship, so I'm just kind of touching the tip of the iceberg here, really. Acknowledging that each other is evolving and things are always in a state of flux. So yes, this comes back to just realizing that the relationship is constantly evolving, and giving yourselves that space to expand and grow. And so don't assume anything. Never to assume anything. And again, this is just about, don't get fixed ideas about your partner and put them in that box. Allow them to constantly grow. And if you both have that agreement and you know that you're both with each other to grow and expand and learn and share, and this is a beautiful way that it can be. Another thing is just being able to express non-judgmentally and being able to be heard. So sometimes when somebody really wants to open up to us authentically and maybe tell them something that they're going through, if we can really be careful of how our response is to that. So for example, they might be sharing something that's deeply intimate and personal and hurtful. And the thing is that it might put us a little bit on edge, or it might kind of make us feel a bit uncomfortable. But again, we've got to understand that this person here is opening up the door to express authentically to us because they trust us. They trust us so much to be able to speak from the heart and let us know how they truly feel about something. So we have to just be there and provide that space for them with non-judgment. So this comes back to unconditional non-judgment and allowing that window for them to open up. And this is a beautiful way to relate to one another and not judging the emotions or the feelings that come up. So just allowing the space for them to express without judgment. And then, if you can offer, words of soothing nature, or you can maybe ask them questions and find out, what the solutions would be to whatever it is. But a lot of the time people don't want solutions. They just want to be heard and acknowledged and loved for what they're feeling. So don't always feel that you have to find some sort of solution to everything, and don't feel bad if you don't know what the answers are either. So it's really learning about not judging ourselves anymore. I think this is what the New Age is about. It's about accepting all of ourselves, all parts of ourselves. And so in relationship, we want that space and that freedom to express all those parts of ourselves in a non-judgmental, loving environment. And so conscious relationship gives us that wonderful opportunity to do that. So I'm going to stop there, and I hope that that's been helpful. And please comment below if you'd like to add anything in your own experience. And wishing you a great day. Bye for now.